What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting edition of the Black and Gold Hour podcast, a podcast where we talk New Orleans Saints. And today I brought back my boy to finish covering the draft weekend. It was a tiring weekend. Me and him, we grinded, stayed up till like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, but it was fun and it was for y'all. So in today's episode, we want to talk about the last night of the draft and what that means for the Saints moving forward. So I brought my guy Mike back. What's up, Mike?
How's it going?
Man, I'm glad you're here today, man. So I brought him back so we could talk a little bit about the draft, what we thought, and like how that shapes the New Orleans Saints upcoming season. So we're going to tap into it in today's episode. Remember to like, comment, share. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to build with you all. But let's get into it. So, Mike, the New Orleans Saints, drafted QB Ian Book, offensive tackle Landon Young, and wide receiver Kawaan Baker. Which draft pick did you like the most out of those three draft picks on the last night of the draft?
Yeah, I'm a big Ian Book fan. I think, just Ian Book overall had a great college career. I know Pro Football Focus isn't high on him for some reason, but Pro Football Focus is wrong on a lot of things, so I don't really care. Yeah, I think Ian Book's great. And, before the draft, actually kind of closer to the draft, Drew Brees was very vocal about, how good of a quarterback he thinks Ian Book is going to be, things along that nature. And, even though Drew Brees is retired, his opinion still does hold weight in New Orleans, and it will forever, most likely. So I think, Ian Book to the Saints, give him a couple years to develop. It makes kind of the quarterback situation a little bit more interesting. I know we got three other quarterbacks on the roster. You got Trevor Siemian, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill all on the roster still too. And it just kind of, that selection just kind of makes a lot of things make sense, really. Because if you look at like Jameis Winston's deal, it's only for a year. If you look at Taysom Hill's deal, it's really only like guaranteed for a year, and then the team controls it. And it just makes a lot of sense. So, if they really like what they see in Ian Book, we could very well see a very similar situation to what we saw when the Saints decided to bring back Jameis Winston. So there's just a lot of exciting, and it just really kind of makes the Saints more entertaining to just kind of stay tuned in terms of like training camp and like maybe Ian Book potentially getting a chance to play at some point this year. And in my kind of like, description of Ian Book is just, he's like the quarterback that the Saints wish Taysom Hill would be. You know what I mean? He's got that athleticism, but he's just more polished with the ball in his hands in terms of throwing the football down the field. You don't have to hold your breath about throwing an interception every time he throws the ball, which is nice. So I'm very excited to see how Ian Book ends up panning out for the Saints.
Yeah, man. And as all the nights went this past weekend, Saints fans were totally upset, most of them. A lot of them, if they didn't do the research, they weren't really, impressed with the picks, or they felt like the Saints could have did more. And you saw the pandemonium when the Saints drafted Ian Book. Now, Ian Book, I did see a little bit of him in college, but I know you liked him a lot. And I kind of want to ask you, and Ian Book said in the interview when he was drafted that he's willing to do whatever the Saints need. And I want to ask you, what will his role be when he comes to the Saints? Will it be competing for a quarterback? Will he be studying under Jameis? Or does he have a realistic shot to start for quarterback for the Saints?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to start, unfortunately. not this year, at least.
Right.
I definitely think the competition is still between Jameis and Taysom. But, hey, you never know. You know what I mean? You just never know what Sean Payton has up his sleeve. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the whole Taysom Hill situation plays out, because, you know what I mean? It's like Taysom can do all these things, and he's proven he can do all these things. Do the Saints kind of view Ian Book potentially doing that role this year to try to contribute right away? It's hard to tell. But it's also like he gets to learn under one of the greatest head coaches in the NFL. He gets to learn under a former number 1 overall pick in Jameis Winston, and I'm sure Drew Brees will still be around to help mentor the kid and stuff like that too. So he's going to learn under some great people. He's going to have a great staff to work with. He's got a locked up receiver. He's got a locked up running back. So he's got some staff there that's going to be there for years. So, I think he's got all the tools to be a successful quarterback. And I think the Saints are just going to continue to keep adding, reloading their roster, to just continue to build around whatever quarterback's under center, really. But, I think, depending on how some of these contracts play out, depending on obviously how Winston or Taysom plays, Book could have a realistic shot at playing this year. You can't predict injuries. You can't predict, people's play really too much, especially if they're kind of unproven. But, Jameis has been working hard this offseason. I think he's going to go in as the starter. And I don't see any reason why Taysom still won't be in his wildcat flex role type of deal. And then, honestly, who knows? If Jameis goes down, then it becomes a question on, do you go with Book or do you go with Taysom, similar to how it was last year when Drew Brees was injured. So, there's just a lot, and having Ian Book it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because, we have arguably the best quarterback depth in the NFL right now. There's no question about it. And and then also, at the same time, it's a curse because how do you use them? You have this talented young player, and we see it. He may not grow frustrated this season because he's a rookie and he understands the process, but we've seen it happen before where, you're sitting behind a guy and you feel like you should be starting. We've seen it with Jacoby Brissett. We've seen it with a bunch of other guys. And it's just he might feel like he wants to start and things along that nature. So it's going to be interesting to see how we use him. But I don't know how big of a role he'll have this year, but I know he'll probably be on an active roster week in and week out just so other teams can't steal him.
Right. And as you said, and as I've been saying for the last couple of podcasts, the Saints, they're already a well-established team. They have a core that is stronger than most teams that'll easily get them possibly 8, 9, 10 wins a season because the core is so strong. Veteran leadership, elite playmakers in Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, and Michael Thomas. So it's not a question of, do the Saints have weapons? But I want to ask you about a specific weapon, and a weapon that you mentioned, Taysom Hill. Now, Taysom Hill talked about how he wanted to dedicate the offseason to strictly QB work. As a head coach, if you were Sean Payton, what would you do with Taysom Hill moving forward?
I'd tell him to make sure he's still practicing other positions as well, because we just drafted a homeboy Ian Book in the 4th round of the draft. So, I think Taysom knows. I think he knows that he's probably practicing more in terms of trying to compete for quarterback. But I think he also knows that realistically, there's absolutely no way he's going to beat out Jameis and Ian Book for the starting spot. He's just, in my opinion, he's just not there. And I think he proved that last year that he's not there. And I know off-season training kind of has a lot to do with, your success in the regular season, but I don't think it has as much to do with it as he thinks. You know what I mean? I think it doesn't matter. In my opinion, if you train the entire off-season to be a quarterback, and then whatever, or even if you're training the entire offseason to be a receiver, flex, tight end, whatever the case may be, and you finally get that chance at quarterback, you've been a quarterback your whole life. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to at least produce a little bit better than what you did. And even still, even if you're still practicing receiver, tight end, all that, you still are taught to tuck the ball away, don't fumble. So there's really just no excuse for it, really, in my opinion. I think he's just kind of using that as an excuse, I've been training to be a receiver, flex, tight end type of deal, and now I'm going to practice to strictly be a quarterback to try and give Saints fans some hope. I just don't see it, man. I'm just not buying it. I'm a big Taysom Hill guy, but I'm not a big Taysom Hill quarterback guy. Like I said, whenever Taysom Hill throws the ball, I squint, hoping it's not an interception, or hoping that Deontay Harris is just out there to miraculously catch the ball or something along the lines of that. I think he has potential, but to me, there's better quarterbacks on the market that would be a much better quarterback than Taysom Hill, and I think we have one in the building in Ian Book. So I think if anybody should be competing for a starting job alongside Jameis Winston, it should be Ian Book. That might be biased, whatever the case may be, but I don't see there's any way that Jameis isn't the starting quarterback. So if I'm Sean Payton right now, or any coach on the Saints, I'm telling Taysom that he better continue to work on those hands too this offseason, because we're going to need him to go out there, especially, if one of, our tight end group, I mean, depending on, Dylan Sonner, obviously, if he makes the roster, as well as a couple other guys, we really only have Adam Troutman and Nick Vannett. So we're going to need him in that flex tight end role to, he plays a huge role in that. And we saw that in the playoffs whenever we didn't have him. Not having Taysom Hill playing in that flex position really hurts the Saints offense. And that's probably one of the reasons we locked him up. We locked him up more because of that than his quarterback play. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, man. And I like how you talked about that, because I'm a Taysom Hill, you know me, like I'm a Taysom Hill guy. I kind of lost, my feelings for being a Taysom Hill at quarterback fan, like you said. He just didn't really show it, but his skills are still very valuable to the team. You have players that, there were players that sometimes, like Mark Ingram, was a spark for the team during his time with the Saints in his last couple of seasons with the Saints. Taysom Hill is a spark plug for the team. He gets the team motivated. There's been so many games where the team felt dead through about 3/4 of the game. Taysom Hill makes a great play, and the Saints end up winning by 2 touchdowns. So I want to see Taysom on the field, and I know he's determined to be quarterback, but I definitely want to see him continue to be used all over the field. He's a playmaker, and I think once he accepts that and Sean Payton fully embraces that, he'll have his most lethal season ever. But let's go back to the draft. The Saints, Peyton Turner, Pete Werner, Paulson, Adebo, Ian Book. Out of all the draft picks that were selected by the New Orleans Saints, which one, and you might have already said it, which one are you take your feelings out of it, which one do you think will have the best season in 2021?
Am I including undrafted free agents too?
Talk about it, man.
Trill Williams, bro. Trill Williams. I really am huge on Trill Williams. I'm really huge on Paulson Adebo too. But so, yeah, I guess for draft picks, I'd say Paulson Adebo is going to have a massive year right now. He's projected to be the number 2 corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. So he's going to see some form of production, and I think he's going to be great. I've talked about that on your previous show. I think he's going to just blow the top off everybody, honestly. But I think Trill Williams, the undrafted free agent from Syracuse, he plays exactly like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He plays with the same passion, same emotion, gets other teams' receivers fired up. Imagine 2 of them dudes on the same field at the same time.
Sheesh.
Oh, my Lord, bro. So, I mean, I see, it is like a mirror when you watch those 2 play. And I think they're going to click instantly. I think he's going to see a lot of playing time. And, I think if any safety goes down in the secondary, he has that ability to play corner, nickel, free safety, strong safety. He can come down and even play linebacker, really. So I think Trill Williams is versatile in that role, and I think he's going to have a great season for the Saints, especially as an undrafted free agent. Who knows how much he'll play right away, but I think, as the season goes and people start to get injured or people start to get, whatever the case may be, aching, stuff like that. And you have to remember it's a 17-game regular season now, so there's that 1 extra week. So, I think he's going to see the field plenty of times. I think he's probably going to make his money originally on special teams. I think he's going to have a Justin Hardy kind of impact on the Saints special teams. And then I think that's going to translate to him playing some time on the defense as well. So I think having a guy like Trill Williams kind of allows the Saints, especially if he plays well, to move on from Marcus Williams in the near future. And just kind of, it just adds good depth to the team. And I think he's going to have a good impact. But yeah, him, Paulson Adebo are my 2 guys for sure. I also kind of like what Pete Werner brings to the team. I was talking about it a little bit yesterday. But yeah, I think he's a good coverage linebacker, which is something a lot of the Saints linebackers don't have. I don't think he's going to start right away. I think the Saints will probably make a move to maybe get another linebacker, a veteran guy to plug out there with Demario Davis. Quan Alexander, I know, is still on the table. So I think that's probably going to end up being the case. And still, I don't know if he would start over Caden Ellis or Zach Vaughn even. But the thing that's nice about Pete Werner is that he has that Craig Robertson impact on the Saints. So he's going to make his money on special teams right away. And he's got that ability to pass coverage. He can also rush the quarterback. He can play the middle linebackers. He's versatile in the right that he can play every middle linebacker spot. And honestly, he's thin and agile enough to honestly probably even bump out the safety if need be. So there's just a lot lot of things, I think the Saints were just trying to get versatility on their defense in the draft, and you can kind of tell it's pretty evident in their draft picks that that's what they were trying to do, is get versatility and depth. And I think they hit a home run, honestly. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Saints draft because, the common fans just looks at it and they're like, oh, well, they could have done this or they could have done that. But then you also, like I said, they're common fans. They don't really know. You have to understand. Right. You have to understand the landscape and the layout of the Saints roster right now. And these all of these draft picks makes perfect sense for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, man. And I like everybody you talked about. You got me hype on Paulson Adebo. This guy is, if Paulson Adebo better have the greatest season on earth because of Mike. But no, I'm also very curious to see Kawaan Baker. Watching his highlights when he was drafted, he has the skill, and we're missing a lot of, I would say, we have quality, kind of proven guys. The Saints are really high on Marquez Callaway, but we also need some other receivers to step up. I like what Kawaan Baker brings to the table. He has the speed, the hands. He's a playmaker. A lot of his highlights are yards after the catch, and that's really important, especially having a wide receiver like Michael Thomas, who may make the catch, but he doesn't have the breakaway speed at times. Sometimes we need a receiver. With Deontay Harris on special teams, it's great to have Deontay Harris and have him implemented into the offense, but I think we need another wide receiver that can kind of, possibly, take a intermediate route and take it to the house. And I like what Kawaan Baker brings to the table, and honestly, he's the player that I'm most excited to see. Hopefully, make the Saints roster, and hopefully, he might be a draft steal, man. I just hopefully, he makes the roster and makes an immediate impact, because a consistent second option at receiver outside of Michael Thomas is few and far between for the New Orleans Saints. So I definitely want to see him. But we
saw the Saints hit a home run when they drafted Marcus Colston. So, hey, anything's possible, my man.
Look, Marcus Colston is... Man, that dude, you go back and watch his highlights. Marcus Colston,
different breed.
He was embarrassing people and just giving it all to God, man. It was crazy. He was doing everything, man. Like, he was not even saying nothing. We call him the quiet storm. Like, this dude was ridiculous, man, and should be in the Hall of Fame, but we won't go there. But anyway, last question of the day, man. CBS Sports gave the Saints a C+ grade for the draft. They kind of criticized. They praise your guy, Paulson Adebo. They said that he will be legitimate, and they're excited to see what he does next season. But they criticized the draft of Pete Werner, and that's my guy. So I was hurt when I read that. But I want to ask you, take the Saints bias. We both love the Saints. If you were to step back and analyze the New Orleans Saints, what grade would you give them based on their draft?
Yeah, I think I'd give them a B. I said that on yesterday's show with somebody else as well. I think I'd give them a B, and here's why. I think the Saints they reached for a couple guys. I think they probably could have snagged Peyton Turner in the second round, maybe even traded up to do so. I'm still not convinced he's a first round pick. I think there were other options there. We could have snagged like Terrace Marshall or another really good receiver. Elijah Moore was on the board. We could have gotten a really good receiver that would have definitely been the number 2 guy instead of, hoping that someone's going to be a number 2 guy. So there are other options we could have gone with there. So, I think if we would have maybe taken like Elijah Moore or something like that in the first round, then I'd give it like maybe a B+ or an A, but we didn't. I like Paulson Adebo. I think he kind of carries this year's draft class. Pete Werner also, in my opinion, is a very slept-on prospect. He's been slept on the entire time. Whenever you're hearing about Ohio State players, you very rarely were hearing about Pete Werner before the draft. So I think he's going to be one of those guys that turns some heads once he's in the league, and he's going to be like, all right, the Saints actually low-key knew what they're doing. And then, I really like Ian Book, especially if Ian Book pans out to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. I think that just makes CBS look crazy. But I think CBS is sleeping a little bit. But if I had to step back, there's obviously some areas where we could have done other things. But like I said earlier in the show, I just think that this draft is perfect for what the Saints are trying to do, which is stay competitive, but also add depth to their roster in positions of need. The Saints are starting to, not just go all in for a Super Bowl. They understand that they may not be able to compete for a Super Bowl over the next couple of years. They may have to rebuild just a little bit. I mean, they still have a lot of their key pieces, but they may not be there. They understand where the Tampa Bay Bucks are at. They understand where some other teams in our division are at. So we have to understand that we also have to gear up and kind of reload for the future. So with understanding some contracts, like our quarterback contracts, Ian Book makes a lot of sense. With our defensive end deals, adding Peyton Turner makes a lot of sense because Cam Jordan's getting old. Marcus Davenport's got another year and like 2 years on his deal. Carl Granderson's unproven. So, making those kind of moves, they make a lot of sense for the Saints. Same with like Pete Werner. Like we have some linebackers who are going to be hitting free agency next year too, after we lost all these dudes this year. So it's just, understanding kind of the Saints roster goes a lot into play. I don't know how much, or whatever person ranked the Saints draft grade, how much they really truly understand the Saints roster, because I understand. I mean, they're trying to cover everybody's roster. So like, I don't know as much about like, the Baltimore Ravens roster as somebody who's like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't think they completely understand the roster, because anybody who really truly understands the Saints roster and the way it's built and what they've done in the past, they know that this is at least a B plus grade for the Saints. It's not a home run grade, but it gives the Saints what they need. I think it's a very good draft, and it just kind of goes with the flow perfectly for what the Saints are trying to do.
Right. And honestly, it goes back. I was saying a couple months ago, it depends on how you feel about the New Orleans Saints. Do you feel as if they're still, legit contenders in the NFL, or do you feel like they need a couple of years to process things? And I think the Saints coaching staff is kind of in between. They still want to be contenders, but like you said, they understand what's ahead and what kind of core they have and what they have to do to sustain success in the years past 2021. So I'm excited to see what they do. I like the draft. Honestly, I would have, made wide receiver more of a priority. Like you said, Elijah Moore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
De'Ami Brown was picked right before the Saints had a selection. So maybe the Saints were going to go with De'Ami Brown, but I'm high on him. These are guys who could have instantly, you don't have to question what they can do. They would have instantly been a number 2 receiver. And I really think if they would have went wide receiver, they would be at a B plus A minus type range, man. Like seriously. Peyton Turner, I'm really liking it. I'm liking his work. I'm liking his passion so far, what we see. But I definitely want to see him on the field. But hey, it's still early. We got a whole training camp. We got things coming up to really see these players in action. And I definitely want to see them as the summer progresses and as we get into the season. But that's it for today's show, you guys. Thank you guys for listening. There's a Merv Speak segment. And the Merv Speak segment for today is, and I think Mike can attest to this, sometimes in life as a kid, as a college student, we feel stuck in doing what feels safe. For me, I went to school for business. I love business, connecting with others, but I didn't really feel fulfilled. So me and my girlfriend in the last year, we've decided to, reach for our passion projects. Hers may be in history and mine may be in sports, but we found so much joy and fulfillment in following the things that we really truly love. And like they say, if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. And when you do what you love, you run into other people that do what you love too. I ran into my guy Mike, man, and he's one of my best friends. I really appreciate him for helping me cover the draft, man. He's gonna come back. He's gonna be on all summer. That's what we do. So I'm glad that he came on. Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. But we're going to be back this week to cover more topics surrounding the New Orleans Saints. But thank you guys for watching. Peace.
Woo!